You're tuned to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay. This is a program called Acupuncture on Air, and it's our pleasure, as always, to have in the studio Heiko from the Acupuncture Clinic in Hastings. How you going, Heiko?
I'm very good, Ken, and you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you coping with all this fame, a star of YouTube?
Yeah, well, by the end of the year, we probably have 50 up on the...
Yeah, we could be our own...
On the web, yeah.
Have our own station. Anyway, we've got a special guest this morning. Would you like to introduce Tania to us?
Yeah, we've got Tania Grasseschi from Sydney. She's a practitioner working over there, and we're going to sort of find out a little bit more about her. Tania, so first say hello and tell us a bit about yourself.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on your show. Well, I did my degree at the University of Technology in Sydney in 2004, and since then I've been in full-time practice in the eastern suburbs, and for the last 4 years I've also been teaching Chinese medicine at college.
All right, so which college are you teaching at?
Endeavour College.
Oh, okay, all right, fantastic. That's in Sydney in the CBD, or where is that?
It is. It's up in Chinatown, up around Railway Square.
Ah, okay, that's fantastic. So tell us a bit about your uni course that you did. I did my master's actually at UTS some years before that. What's the program like these days?
I'm not sure what it's like these days, but you know, back in the day when I did it, it was a good course. 4 years of studying Chinese medicine, both acupuncture and herbs. About a third of the course was all about the Chinese medicine aspect. A third of the course was all Western medicine. We did study with the nurses, and the other third of the course was all the hands-on clinical stuff.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. And the practice you get from treating the patients when you're going for college, is that at the university? They have a college clinic there, do they?
They do have a college clinic, which is absolutely great for going to get treatments. It's very affordable treatments, and it's a great experience for us when you're students.
Fantastic.
Now, you're practicing in Sydney. I've been to Sydney. I've been to Chinatown where you're at. It's flat out like a lizard drinking over there, isn't it? How do you get to work?
Well, I actually practice in the eastern suburbs, so it's easier to get to work than if I was to practice in Chinatown. But yes, Sydney's a pretty crazy place, and my practice is right near the University of New South Wales, but it's not too bad around there. My patients don't tend to complain.
Now, today we're going to talk about acupuncture for menopause, which I guess just about every woman has either had or is not looking forward to.
That's right, and but I think generally your practice it's quite heavily focused on women's disorders, isn't it, Tania?
Yes, it is. I treat quite a range of women, from young girls who've just started menstruating to women who've entered menopause.
And how do you find with the the menopause? Are you getting the patients that come to you like complaining about menopause, or they've just come for something else, and then you sort of happen to say to them, "Oh, I think we can help your flushing," or whatever?
With the other menstrual issues, I often find women come in with one problem, and then as I inquire further into their health, I find some aspects of their menstrual cycle that they didn't realise acupuncture could help. But with menopause, the women either come in specifically seeking help with their hot flushes, or they come in looking for help with sleep and restoring their energy levels, because basically the night sweats are keeping them awake.
Right, okay.
I'm not an expert, Tanya. I've done a little bit of reading about menopause. I mean, why would I? Because I'm not a woman anyway. But anyway, most women seem to be taking hormone replacement therapy for menopausal symptoms, including increased chance of heart attack. That's if you take this hormone replacement therapy. Blood clots, strokes. Why would they take that stuff?
Well...
And why should they have acupuncture instead, perhaps?
They often take that stuff because they don't know there's another option. But there are other options. You know, acupuncture is very beneficial. Acupuncture and Chinese herbs together can be very beneficial at addressing a lot of the issues that can arise with menopause.
Yeah, I mean, I'm finding too now, Tania, is that in my practice up here, and this is sort of what you call small regional New Zealand towns, that many women are just plain refusing not to take the medication. I mean, they've been prescribed it because they're having these distressing symptoms, but then they think, well, I'd rather just not take it and put up with the symptoms, because usually their mothers or grandmothers have said, oh, we all have those problems, you just deal with it. But Do you find that flushing is probably the heat flushes is the main distressing symptoms that these women are experiencing?
Hot flushes certainly are a big issue, and the night sweats particularly because it's keeping them awake. The really interesting things is, of course, not everybody struggles with menopause, but those that do can get the hot flushes and the night sweats, but they can also get a lot of vaginal dryness, which is a big problem because then, of course, sex becomes painful, and when there's pain involved, your libido tends to wane. Weight gain can be an issue. A lot of women are concerned about osteoporosis, and that perimenopausal phase can be a bit disorienting because all of a sudden, you've had your regular cycle and suddenly you're missing periods, and then you're getting periods every 3 weeks. You've had a good period and all of a sudden it's really heavy or really light, and you don't know quite what's happening.
One of the symptoms that I know that the women complain about is the weight gain. They sort of say, they've always sort of managed their weight, with a bit of exercise and a bit of diet, but then once sort of the menopause kicks in, it becomes a real struggle for them. Have you found that the acupuncture and herbs are able to help to balance that or moderate that?
We can certainly help, but as we get older, our metabolism does slow down, our activity levels do change. So we sort of need to keep up with that by making changes in the diet. But yeah, the acupuncture, the herbs, that can all look at boosting the metabolism back up again. I often suggest changes in diet and other things to do to just get people working well again.
If you wind the clock back, Tania, 2,000 years ago, they didn't know what a hormone was. So how did they work out what it was and how to treat it?
Well, Chinese medicine is very much about yin and yang. We know that. Yin is very cooling, calming, moistening. The yang aspect is a very warming, activating, drying side of things. So basically, when you're looking at menopause, it can either manifest as a yin deficiency, so the yin becomes depleted, you feel hot and dry, so there's your flushes and your vaginal dryness, for example. Or it can show up as a yang deficiency, so you're feeling cold, your digestive fire feels like it's gone out, and that's where you're putting on weight and getting fluid retention. So back in the day, they were just looking at rebalancing that yin, rebalancing that yang.
Yeah, because I find in my own clinic, more commonly, from a traditional Chinese diagnostic perspective, is that the kidney energy, when it gets weak, is I see that more in the clinic. And Ken, and I have mentioned this on the show before, that sort of one of the rationales of how the traditional doctors looked at it. They sort of said, well, the kidneys connects to the bladder, and the bladder connects to the sexual organs. So therefore, problems related to the sexual energy and the organs comes back to treating the kidneys, and it sort of makes for a real simple sense from a Chinese perspective, but of course from a Western medical scientific view, and they'll just say it's absurd. There's no connection.
If you keep the kidneys strong though by having acupuncture, does that help ward off or even stop menopause coming along?
I think what we'll say is that acupuncture is good at helping balance the body, but unfortunately it's not going to sort of turn back the clock. From a traditional diagnostic perspective, we say, menopause, or, for the menstrual cycle to cease at around the age of 49 is normal. But it's not normal to have all the problems and associated symptoms with it. And I think, unfortunately, and Tania, you probably will agree with me, is that women are just starting to accept that, well, it's normal to have flushes and have all these problems, when really it's not. What's your take on that?
Yeah, look, a really interesting discovery that's come about with a lot of research into menopause is that in those societies where age is more revered and the older woman is considered wise, menopausal symptoms are actually significantly less bothersome.
Yeah, I've heard about that thing. I think Jane Littleton once at a seminar I did was bringing up that research. So yeah, it's very interesting, the whole sort of mindset about it.
Yeah, your expectations, your attitudes, as well as, differences in diet, physical activity, lifestyle, all of those things can certainly impact on how you're experiencing menopause.
Ken?
Yeah, I suppose also menopause has its other problems that most women would get very seriously depressed when they get it. Sort of, is it almost like, oh, my life's over? Here I am in menopause.
Yeah, well, I think that's, and we'll hear Tania's view on that. It's probably part of it, because I think it can, similar to like a male when he retires and then he suddenly feels that,
useless.
I don't have a reason to get out of bed in the morning now or whatever. But at the same time, I think it's actually the hormones and the imbalances that then probably change the biochemistry in the brain, so that you feel flat and unmotivated and tired.
So what happens at that point? Are you treating for menopause and depression, or both at the same time? Is it both the same treatment?
How do you go about that, Tania? What's your sort of take on that?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, the kidney is traditionally in Chinese medicine the organ that is affected in menopause, but it's not just the kidney energy. The liver energy can be affected when, women spend their life stressing through life, and the heart energy can be affected. So we know that the heart is part of the fire energy, the kidney is part of that water energy. So when people come in with a lot of anxiety issues, it's about rebalancing that fire and water. Phlegm or dampness within the body, when the yang goes down and then there's a lot of fluid or phlegm in the body, that is a traditional diagnostics that says, phlegm misting the mind, which makes us feel foggy and heavy and down and flat. And so we're looking at, when we're treating menopause, we're not treating a disease, we're treating a person. So we're looking at what's out of balance and how we can bring that all back into balance.
Yeah, and that's, I think, with Western medicine, they always try to break it down into these little bits, these little cellular bits, or this little hormone bit, whereas the Chinese diagnosis and the way we go to treat it is to treat the whole person.
I wonder, Heiko raised a point though that you as a woman, it's coming, what the effects of it are going to be. What are you saying from an acupuncturist point of view? Are you both saying that you can ward off the effects just by having acupuncture, or are they going to get those regardless, and you're going to just help treat it to make it a bit better?
Tania, I'll let you.
Not everybody struggles with menopause.
Yeah, I was going to say that, and that's the thing. I have plenty of patients who no problems, but then others, problems.
Yeah. So when the women are struggling, then we can help them get through it. We can help them get through it with the acupuncture, with the herbs, but we can also help them get through it by helping them change things that might be irritating or aggravating. If they're getting the hot flushes, how can they, change perhaps their diet, maybe stop digging out on chilies and curries and things that are just adding heat into the body, and a lot of people don't see that connection.
Could it also be just in their head? You hear all these horror stories about what happens when you go through menopause, and they're expecting it, so it does happen?
I think that there's always a possibility of that, but I think definitely it's the hormones changing the chemistry in the brain that's making them feel weird. It's pretty hard to talk yourself into getting a night sweat,
Oh, I don't know so much. Tania, Heiko and I often talk that when people are being treated by acupuncture, that it's not quite voodoo, but it's sort of a bit unknown to them. And they would rather actually put something in their mouth, like a pill. Do you find that Chinese herbs work? Either you make up a soup, or you pack them inside a pill and you say, swallow this. Does that work as well for menopausal treatment?
It sure does. Chinese herbs are great, and often, when I treat, I'll start with a course of acupuncture treatments, and if things just aren't shifting as quickly as we'd both like them to, then I'll add herbs into the mix, and that usually works the treat. There's quite a range of formulas that addresses all sorts of patterns and conditions that we've talked about.
Are there any herbs in particular? I was reading about black cohosh. Is that the way you say it?
Black cohosh is very much a naturopathic herb. In Chinese medicine, we work a little bit differently to the way naturopaths work. The with Chinese herbs, they treat the individual needs. So it's certainly important to see a registered practitioner who can make you up a proper formula.
Yeah, that's what I just would like to stress about, Chinese herbs. I mean, it is basically another full-time degree. So when Tania and myself, we would have studied it. It's literally like doing another degree on top of the acupuncture. But I wouldn't know how many hundreds of hours or thousands of hours, whatever it is. But it's a very extensive, and it involves, Chinese herbs always involves formulas and combinations of herbs. And changing of doses, and it's not like just take black cohosh and see how you go for a year. Tania and myself, we would be seeing patients, and we're changing the herbs regularly, changing the formula, changing the doses, tailor making them to fit the individual needs.
I wonder, we have a homeopathic show on Radio Kidnappers, and the host Heidi, she was telling me that there are in excess of probably 4,000 homeopathic remedies. Is that the same with the Chinese herbs? I mean, how do you decide that black cohosh is the one for you? I mean, is it that simple? There's one size fits all? Or not?
Tania?
Look, two women with the same symptoms can come in, but they're experiencing them for very different reasons. So the key is always in how we differentiate the diagnosis. Are we nourishing the yin or are we nourishing the yang? Are we nourishing the kidneys or the liver or the heart? There are thousands of herbs, and how we put those herbs together, to create a formula is very much dependent upon the woman that's coming in for treatment.
Do you guarantee that they're going to work? I mean, again, I always say to Heiko that if I go to the doctor, I can get a pill, I can guarantee almost that within a couple of days I'm going to start feeling better. I might have a side effect from that pill, but what happens when you say to someone, look, try acupuncture, try Chinese herbs, you're going to feel better within how many hours or days, Tania?
I knew he'd ask you this question, Tania. Sorry, should have warned you.
How long is a piece of string?
That's what he says all the time.
That's how I answer it every week.
That's his way to get out of it.
It depends on what's causing it depends on a lot of things. Generally speaking, if everything is good, I will say to women, come in for a course of 6 weekly treatments, and usually by the end of that course, you'll be feeling so much better. But if the menopause is as a result of breast cancer therapy or what do you call it? When they remove the uterus.
Okay.
Hysterectomies, those sorts of things. If they've been struggling with menopause for a very long time, if we catch it early, it's going to be easier to treat. If there's, other circumstances, it's going to be a little bit harder to treat. But, my women love me. They come in and they're just so grateful that often within a few weeks of treatment, the symptoms are much reduced, the severity is reduced, the frequency is reduced, they're getting better sleep, they're just feeling better overall.
Yeah, I'm finding, it's the putting a number on the number of treatments is difficult, because even, as you said, everyone is a bit different. And so I sort of suggest, at least sort of 6 or 10 sessions, and then to ascertain the changes. And in most cases, that there will be a reduction. There won't be an elimination. It's not like you just have it and then suddenly you're just completely fixed and you never need it again. It's a gradual improvement. Be it sometimes it can be quite quick, quite dramatic. And for some of my patients, I get that sort of under control, but then they might still come along once a month and just sort of have a regular bit of a tune-up. And I think mainly that's just a cost perspective, and because it's maybe difficult to get to me or whatever. And so then they say, oh, you had a little bit of a flushing like 2 days ago, but otherwise I haven't had any for 3 weeks. And so they sort of sense that or feel that the acupuncture is sort of regulating or balancing, changing something.
Sounds great. Look, we're just about out of time. I'm going to have one of Heiko's famous in New Zealand songs. But Tania, just before we let you go, just remind our listeners, our international listeners, we want to come and see you. Where is your practice and how do we get hold of you?
My practice is in Kingsford. So the clinic number, remember this is a Sydney number, 9188 5150, and the website, of course, is orientalwisdom.com.au.
What about you, Heiko? How do we get hold of you?
Yeah, well, with me, you can't see my sign yet up on the thing, but I would have that in a couple of weeks. But my website is accu123.co.nz. But what I will do, Tania, is I'll put your link for your website up in the comment section on the YouTube, and that'll make it nice and easy for people to particularly Sydney people, to come and find you.
Thank you so much.
I just hope I'm not going to lose any of my patients from here flying over to see you. That's all.
And to finish off, we've got a couple of songs. Heiko, what are they?
Well, we could just hopefully we can get both of them in. One of them, they're both sort of George Harrison songs per se. The first one is from the Beatles, Within You, Without You, and then the other one from George Harrison, What Is Life?
And that first song is all about the metaphysical space that prevents individuals from recognising the natural forces uniting the world. Did you know that? I thought it was just a song. Here they are.